Well, good afternoon, brothers and sisters, my beloved, because that's what you all are to me. Welcome to Readings with Regina, and I have some special news to share with you, but I'm not going to do it right now, okay? I want to get into the books because there's a lot I want to say about the books today. And this episode is called The Childhoods of the Panther Founders, Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, and the Panther Emblem, Assata Shakur. So I'm going to get right into, I got a comment. Wait a minute. Bring that up. It is James Green. James, now I know I'm ready to start because you are here. Thank you for your presence. I really appreciate that. Absolutely. So here we go. I'm going to start with Huey P. Newton. I'm going to pick up where I left off on Tuesday, and I am giving you an idea about his childhood, about that great man's childhood. So here we go. This is Huey as a little boy. Oh, did I thank all of my subscribers? I hope I did. Okay, here we go. We also despise cats because we were told that cats killed little babies. I was told that too. He's talking about the 40s. I came along in the 50s. Boom. We were told that cats killed little babies by sucking the breath out of them. We tested the tale about cats always landing on their feet. When we caught cats and took them to the top of the stairs and hurled them down, they would land on their feet. Most of the time. Dirt was a favorite toy. Yes, we used it to play at being builders. The roof of the house was our building site. We would climb up there and pull up the dirt-filled buckets behind us with rope, hand over hand, to the top of the house, and then dump the dirt down on the other side. There were no swimming pools near us, but when we got a little older, we began to wander down to the bay with the other kids and go swimming off the pier in the dirty water. Dirt, rats, cats, these are the games and toys of the poor, as old and cruel as economic reality. My parents insisted that we learn to get along with each other. When there was a dispute, my father never took sides. He was always an impartial judge, listening to both parties and getting to the bottom of things before making a decision. He was a fair and careful judge about all disputes. And later, when we had trouble in school, my father went every time to the teacher or the principal to learn what had happened. When we were right, he stood up for us, but he never tolerated wrongdoing. We were not taught to fight by our parents, although my father insisted that we stand our ground when attacked. He told us never to start a fight, but once in it, to stand fast until the end. This was how we grew up, in a close family with a proud, strong, protective father and a loving, joyful mother. No wonder we came to feel that all our needs, from religion to friendship to entertainment, were met within the family circle. There was no felt need for outside friends. We were such good friends with each other. In this way, the days of our childhood slipped past. We shared the dreams of other American children in our innocence. We planned to be doctors, lawyers, pilots, boxers, and builders. How could we know then that we were not going anywhere? Nothing in our experience had shown us yet that the American dream was not for us. We too had great expectations, and then we went to school. Chapter 2. Now, this is a quote from Kenneth Clark. He wrote a book called Dark Ghetto. The clash of cultures in the classroom is essentially a class war, a socio-economic and racial warfare being waged on the battlefield of our schools, with middle-class aspiring teachers provided with a powerful arsenal of half-truths, prejudices, and rationalizations arrayed against hopelessly outclassed working-class youngsters. This is an uneven balance, particularly since, like most battles, it comes under the guise of righteousness. This chapter is called Losing. Because we moved around a lot when I was growing up, I attended almost every grammar and junior high school in the city of Oakland and had wide experience with the kind of education Oakland offers to poor people. At the time, I did not understand the size or seriousness of the school system's assault on Black people. I knew only that I constantly felt uncomfortable and ashamed, oh my Lord, of being Black. This feeling followed me everywhere without let up. It was a result of the implicit understanding in the system that whites were smart and Blacks were stupid. Anything presented as good was always white. Even the stories teachers gave us to read in the early grades. Little Black Sambo, can you? I can't believe this. Little Black Sambo, that's what they taught Huey and other Black youngsters. Look that book up. Little Black Sambo, Little Red Riding Hood, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs told us what we were. I remember my reaction to Little Black Sambo. Yes, Sambo was, first of all, a coward. When confronted by the tigers, he gave up the presents from his father without a struggle. First the umbrella, then the beautiful crimson felt-lined shoes. Everything until he had nothing left. And afterward, Sambo wanted only to eat pancakes. This is awful. He was totally unlike the courageous white knight who rescued Sleeping Beauty. The knight was our symbol of purity, while Sambo stood for humiliation and gluttony. Time after time, we heard the story of Little Black Sambo. We did not want to laugh, but finally we did, to hide the shame, accepting Sambo as a symbol of what Blackness was all about. You see that? Now, Huey went to school in the 1940s. Huey P. Newton co-founded the Black Panther Party for self-defense. I went to school in the 1950s. I don't even remember the books, but I certainly remember being ashamed of being Black. Lord have mercy. In fact, when they had Black, they had, no, I think it was called Negro History Week. I felt so ashamed. Oh, yes, I felt so ashamed. And I didn't know why I felt ashamed. Okay? That's very important. I want you all to understand that. And I want you all, especially those of you who are either parents, young parents, going to be parents, you must talk to your children. Now, I'm going to get more into that when we go into Assata's childhood, because her grandmother and grandfather raised her. So you'll hear more of that from that particular book. Okay? So let me pull this up. What is James saying now? Yes, it was a terrible period. Yes. And James and everybody else listening to me, I want you to understand. Black Panther started Black Studies. Yes. I'll get more into that a little bit later if I don't have time. This episode, I certainly will do it next week because a lot of people don't know that. But I love reading about what happened with Huey in school and Little Black Sambo. because it touches my heart, because I know how I personally felt in the 1950s. He's talking about the 1940s. Regina came up in the 1950s, 60s, and it was still like that. Okay, here we go. Now this is, in fact, let me show you all the books. I haven't even done that. Let me do that. That's important. Now we just finished reading Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton. And let me just share this with you too. I'm so happy that I got the book that I did with this cover years and years and years and years and years and years and years ago, because the new cover for Revolutionary Suicide, I don't like it that much. It's not. This is Huey. Yo, this is Huey. He's sitting in Huey's chair. He got his spear in one hand. He got his gun in the other hand. The rug is from Africa. I think it's the skin of a zebra. And if you look very closely, you can see the shield in the background. That's Huey. The new cover that they have, like if you go to Amazon or any bookstore and look for the latest cover of Revolutionary Suicide, don't look nothing like that. Yo. All right, so here we go. Now I'm going to read A Lonely Rage, the autobiography of Bobby Seale. And I got great news about Bobby Seale. I'm going to tell you a little later. I told most of you on Tuesday that yesterday was Bobby Seale's birthday. Yes, October the 22nd. He turned either 88 or 89. I'm not quite sure. But hey, he's still with us. You know who he is not. But Bobby is still with us. They are great men. They are your Black heroes. Never forget that. All right. Here we go with Bobby. Bobby's father was terrible. Here we go. George, this is Bobby's mom. You whipping that boy too much. Mama hollered out at Daddy as I kicked around under the whipping. Dust and dirt were flying. I told you. Whop, whop, whop. I was about to pee on myself. The licks kept burning as I jumped, yelled, and hollered. I told you to wash that shirt, damn it. Yes, sir, Daddy. And pleading, oh, please, Daddy. Yes, sir, Daddy, I'm going to do it. I jumped and screamed. Daddy slung me and I stumbled to the ground by the wash bench. I got up out of the dirt crying. George, Mama hollered at Daddy. I saw her out of the yard with us now. You whip Bobby too much. Now wash that shirt like I told you, he ordered. Daddy walked up the back door stairs. Mama followed him. George, I wash your shirts. Why you got Bobby doing that? Daddy was cursing, Mama loudly in the kitchen, while I scrubbed at the shirt. I stood there crying and scared, hearing the harsh cursing and the angry words. Time passed. I sulked, rubbing at the shirt, paying little heed, tears running down my face. I was hurting all over. The screen door flew open. I looked up quickly at my daddy, saying, You ain't finished, he hollered angrily. Damn it, and came down the stairs in 2 leaps and was on me, whipping. I told you, whop, 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 to wash that goddamn shirt. I yelled, I cried. He beat me as I jerked and jumped, telling him, I'm going to wash it. I'm going to wash it. The next thing I knew, Mama had the belt in her hand saying, You don't need to whip that boy like that. Thelma, I'll break your goddamn neck. Daddy grabbed at the belt and Mama jerked away. Daddy followed her, cursing, and Mama said, You just whipping that boy for nothing, and you know it. I had to hurry up and wash this shirt. I started scrubbing, crying, hurting, and painting, fearful of another whipping. How do I finish? I remembered Mama saying when she washed, Bobby, run me some more water in the bucket. And I wanted to play, so I asked, Why do you need so much water? She'd say, So I can rinse the clothes 3 times. I had to rinse the shirt 3 times to get through washing it. Mama and Daddy were hollering, accusing, arguing, cursing, and Daddy cursing the most. I hurriedly put the basin under the faucet again, filling the basin and put it back on the bench. Clumsily, I went through the same motions, trying to rinse and squeeze, going as fast as I could. Twice, then a third time. I filled the basin and dipped the shirt up and down. I folded both ends together, as I'd seen Mama do. Feeling weak from the whipping, I wrung, twisted, and squeezed the shirt. There was my daddy now, standing at the top step. I wanted to run, but I was scared to. I just stood there with the dripping shirt in my hand. You finished washing that shirt? He bellowed. Yes, sir, I said quickly but nervously. I handed it toward him with both hands, and I noticed the belt in his hands. Hold it out. Shake it out so I can see it. Would he whip me because hadn't hung it on the line? I told you to wash that damn shirt, he shouted coming off the stairs. George, you just whipping that, Mama was shouting. Wah, wah, I yelled and cried. Wah, 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 Mama snatched Daddy's belt. I was lying on the dirt, crying, as Mama tussled and struggled with Daddy. Daddy snatched the belt away and came at me again, walloping me rapidly all over my body. George, Mama was shouting. George, George, you done whipped that boy too much. God damn it, Thelma. I'm skinning this cat. You hold his tail. You just don't want me to see what's on that shirt. Just whipping that boy for nothing. They were in the kitchen. Their arguing continued. You treat that boy like he ain't your son. I got up off the ground, crying in dreadful pain. I sucked air in spurts and tried to catch my breath, not understanding why I'd got whipped so bad. The shirt was lying on the ground in the dirt. I went and picked it up and hurriedly rinsed, wrung, and squeezed it out twice. I felt weak and scared. I took it over to the clothesline, got some clothespins. Standing on the tips of my toes, I pinned it up as best I could. I wanted to leave. I didn't want him to be my daddy. I slowly walked away. He ain't my real daddy. Mama said he treated me like I ain't his son. I could hear Mama. George, you going straight to hell. You and them Wilcoxes. I'll break your goddamn neck, Thelma. Now shut up, damn it. A quiet pause. Then, shit. I walked over to the church steps, hurting all over me from the whipping. I sat there, imagining and wishing I was someone else who did not get whippings. It was getting dark. I'll break your goddamn neck, he said to Mama. I shivered all over. I got scared, driving the thought away. I felt lonely. It was getting darker. Bobby, Mommy called out. Come on in this house so you can eat. I got up and walked slowly to the house, wishing and hoping Daddy had finished eating. Oh my gracious. That was Bobby Seale's childhood. Now I want you to compare and contrast that, if you will, with Huey's childhood. Okay? I also want you to think about this. Why was Bobby's father ready to whip him as he did? Okay? What does that tell you about black men during that time period? All right? What does that tell you about the other black men that you heard about that I read that existed during slavery? So I just want you to think about those things. And remember, as I always tell you, use these videos as teaching tools. We must educate our own children, no matter how difficult it may be. Make time to do that. And if you know some children who are not your own but need to be educated, educate them. Each one teach one. Okay? That's what's up. Well, now I am going, let me see. Got another. In the middle school in the 90s, the books we studied had tragic, stupid. Oh, and 2/3 of them had the, whoa, Sa'a, you are kidding, in the 90s? Helpless black characters. Help, see, okay, Sa'a, I'm so happy that you shared this with me, okay? And with the audience. We wouldn't know this. This is why I say we as black people have got to educate our own children. Now, this is the good news that I wanted to share with you about Bobby G. Seale. And by the way, his middle name is George, which was his father's name. Dig this. On Bobby's birthday, the city of Oakland, yesterday, they named the street that Bobby Seale grew up on Bobby Seale Way. So we got a street in Oakland honoring this heroic black man. Okay? Even though you just heard how his childhood was, that brother grew up, met Huey P. Newton at Merritt College, wasn't far from Bobby's house, and the rest is history. Yes. So keep in mind that Bobby Seale now has a street named after him. Bobby Seale Way. I just love that. Okay? Dig that. Beautiful. Let me put up these other comments. Abuse from outside the home by yes. Yes. And that's what it is. That's why I'm constantly preaching. Oh, Virginia, ain't that deep? Wow, in the 90s. Thank you, sir. Check it. That's why I be preaching every time I come on. I'm going to tell you all that we must educate our children even today. Now, y'all know Assata. Y'all know the great Assata Shakur. Oh, so I'm now going to read from her autobiography. All right. And she is living in the South. I think North Carolina with her grandparents. My grandparents were big on respect. I was to be polite and respectful to adults, to say good morning or good evening as I passed the neighbors' houses. Any kind of back talk or sass was simply out of the question. My grandparents didn't even permit me to answer questions with a simple yes or no. Instead, I had to say, yes, grandmother, or no, grandfather. But when it came to dealing with white people in the segregated South, my grandmother would tell me menacingly, don't you respect nobody that don't respect you. You hear me? Yes, grandmother. I would answer, my voice almost a whisper. Speak up, she would tell me repeatedly, something she seemed hell bent on making me do. She would send me to the store with clear instructions on what to bring back. I was under no circumstances to come home with inferior goods, something which happened all too often to Black people in the South. Quote, you tell them that you don't want any garbage and you'd better not come back with any, end of quote, she would warn me. If the store owner sold me something that my grandmother didn't like, I would have to return to the store and get the thing changed or get my money back. You speak up loud and clear. Don't let me have to go down to that store. Scared to death of the fuss my grandmother would make. If she had to go to the store herself, I would hurry back to the store, prepared to raise almighty hell. Whenever my grandmother heard about somebody being mistreated, especially if it was a man mistreating a woman, she would glare at me and say, don't you let anybody mistreat you. You hear? We're not raising you up to be mistreated. You hear? I don't want you talking or taking no mess off of nobody. You understand? Yes, grandmother, I would answer, for what seemed like the millionth time, wondering why my grandmother liked to repeat herself so often. The tactics that my grandparents used were crude, and I hated it when they would repeat everything so often. But the lessons that they taught me, more than anything else, I learned in life, helped me to deal with the things I would face growing up in America. And she spells America Amerika. But a lot of times, for my grandparents, pride and dignity were hooked up to things like position and money. For them, being just as good as was meant being just as good as white people meant, having what white people had. They would tell me to go to school and study so that I could have a nice house and nice clothes and a nice car. White people don't want to see us with nothing, they would tell me. That's why you got to get your education so that you could be somebody and have something in life. Becoming somebody in life just didn't mean too much to me. I wanted to feel happy, to feel good. My awareness of class differences in the Black community came at an early age. Although my grandmother taught me more about being proud and strong than anyone I know, she had a lot of Booker T. Washington pull useful up by the bootstraps, or pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That talented 10th. If you don't or have never heard of that, just look it up. W.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington. She had worked hard and had made a decent living as a piece worker in a factory. Whoa. Yes, so did my grandmother, so did my mother and my aunt. But she had other ideas for me. She was determined that I would become part of Wilmington's talented 10th, the privileged class, part of the so-called Black bourgeoisie. One of her first steps was to sternly forbid me to play with alley cats. It was impossible for me to obey her orders since I had absolutely no idea what an alley cat was. I often became the unwitting object of my grandmother's fury, charged with the crime of alley cat, alley rat playing. My grandmother, writhing with annoyance, would threaten me with untold punishments if I continued my evil ways. I received strict orders to abandon my penchant for alley rats and play with decent children. But we could never agree on who decent children were. Decent children to my grandmother were a whole nother story. Decent children came from decent families. How did you know what a decent family was? A decent family lived in a decent house. How did you know what a decent house was? A decent house was fixed up nice and had a sidewalk in front of it. Decent families didn't let their kids play in the street with no shoes on and didn't let their kids say ain't. Little did my grandmother know that ain't was my favorite word once I got 2 feet out of her hearing range. My grandmother had a little alley rat right under her roof and she didn't even know it. Alley rats supposedly lived in alleys and rundown shacks, but my grandmother would often call one of my friends an alley rat, even if the kid didn't live in an alley. Dutifully, to put some sense in my head, she would take me to visit decent children. These decent little souls were invariably the offspring of Wilmington's Black doctors, lawyers, preachers, and undertakers, school teachers, barbershop owners, and the editor of the colored newspaper were also decent. In most of these decent little play sessions, the other kids and I would stand around looking at each other awkwardly. Sometimes we would get it on and have some fun, but more often than not, it would be a glare at each other time or show and tell time. The kids showing me their toys and such while the grown ups oohed and ahed. The worst times were eating at the preacher's house when they would take an hour saying grace or playing ball with the undertaker's daughter. She always wanted to play ball, and I was scared to death at that the ball was going to roll into the part where they kept the dead people and end up in the mouth of some corpse. My grandmother would have caught a shit fit if she had known that one of her favorite little decent kids' favorite games was playing show and tell with his ding-a-ling, y'all know what that is, his ding-a-ling, and threatening to pee on everybody. All right, people, that is my reading for today, but this is also what I want to show you because this is the month of the Panther. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was created October 15th through 16th in Bobby Seale's North Oakland office. He and Huey got together to create the principles and the platform for the Black Panther Party for self-defense. I want to show you a few other very important Panthers. This is a brother, Jalil Mutakim. He was a Black Panther. He joined the Black Liberation Army. He knew Assata Shakur, and he did 49 years in prison for you. He's out now, and he's sane, and he's even teaching a class. Love him dearly. The next person I want to show you is Daruba. Yes, Daruba. Why am I blanking on his last name? Daruba Ben Wahad, I believe. Anyway, Brother Love did 19 years for you. And when I say that, these are brothers that were in the Black Panther Party, went into the Black Liberation Army. Why do you think they did that? Why do you think they did that? They did that for you. They did that to get rid of that little black Sambo mentality, okay? They did that to show you that Black people were heroic. And here's another book I want to recommend. Look for Me in the Whirlwind. Yo, hey, this is important because it is a book about the New York Panther 21, which Afeni Shakur was one of those people, and so was Daruba Ben Wahad and others. Okay, so I wanted to show you that because you should know who your Black heroes are, so we can have a fuller understanding when we teach our youngsters about Black history. Now I'm going to show you something that I'm so proud of. That is my latest book. It is a novel. And check out the title. Title is called In Back of God's Eye. Now, it's not out yet. It's going to be out on November the 11th. But I just wanted to share it with you because I'm just so proud of myself. I really am. And the fine print in the back says, Regina Jennings, PhD, has written 6 poetry books and academic books, one winning an International Book Award. She has also published 32 academic peer-reviewed articles. In Back of God's Eye is her first published novel. You could reach out to her at apanthersister.com and Readings with Regina on YouTube. So I will be talking about that book because it's in its final phases and I'm very happy about that. So I wanted to share that with you. Okay. Here we go. Let me see what James is saying. Appreciated, but reparations and repair of our financial issues, pain, tokenism by power, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. But let me just say this to you too, James. This was the importance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, do for self. All right? I'm not saying that we shouldn't have reparations. I know we should have had them. What does that tell you about those decent Black politicians? You dig? You dig? So, what we have to do, we have to really understand the laws in this country. We have to pick and choose our leaders, or be the leader that you want to be. Be the leader that you want to see. Okay? Oh, brothers and sisters, it is always so good to be with you. I am so happy for all of my subscribers. Truly, I am. So please hit the like button. I've been told to say that. It means something. Not sure what, but it means something. Share these videos, but most often, what I want you to do is use these videos as teaching tools. I will be back with you next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. And in the meantime, in between time, know that I pray for all of you every night and every day. And if I get a chance, I even do it mid-afternoon. Yes. Yes. So take good care of yourself, love your people, and do for your people and yourself. Bye now.